The BBC is campaigning for the decriminalisation of abortion.
She delivered a 26-week-old fetus in the bathroom of her London home after taking abortion medication.
Didn't really know what to do at that point, so I wrapped the baby in some scarves. Looking back, that may not have been the best thing to do, but you have no idea what to do in a situation like that.
This is the story of Nicola Packer. Now, Nicola moved in with a man and a wife to form a threesome, some sort of BDSM relationship. I'll spare you the details. Anyway, she became pregnant by the husband of the woman who they were living with. She took a pregnancy test, found she was pregnant, and sought an abortion. Immediately, that's her story. So she went to Mary Stopes International, had a sort of teleconference appointment, an online appointment, and got pills by post sent to her. She took the pills and then basically delivered her dead daughter into the toilet. It seems far more advanced than she claims to have understood, maybe 26 weeks gestation. So she took her dead daughter, wrapped her in scarves, put her in a rucksack and went to the hospital.
And then I sat down again on the toilet and just sort of pushed, and then, unfortunately out came a stillborn baby. And so I sort of looked down and just pulled the baby up. Very sadly, there were no signs of life. Didn't really know what to do at that point. So I wrapped the baby in some scarves. So I put her in my bag.
Nicola could tell the baby she delivered was much further along than the 6 weeks she'd estimated.
So Nicola received treatment. An autopsy was performed on the baby girl. 26 weeks gestation was the conclusion. So here, the fact is that this was an illegal abortion. It's beyond the legal limit of 10 weeks for an abortion by pills at home. And it's also beyond the legal limit, full stop, of 24 weeks. So the hospital contacted the police and Nicola was arrested, and this was investigated, and eventually, after a lot of legal shenanigans, she ended up on trial. Now, does this happen? Can people be pregnant? Can a woman be pregnant up to 26 weeks and not know it? Well, the answer to that is yes. I think it's called cryptic pregnancy. It's rare. Okay, but the fact that it's rare, that's why not many cases end up in court. You expect the rare cases to end up in court. So that is possible. And she claims that she believed she was under 10 weeks pregnant. Now, a key element in the prosecution case at the trial was that she'd made various internet searches before taking the abortion pills. Internet searches such as, is an at-home abortion treatment effective up to 12 weeks? What's the abortion limit in the UK? If you late miscarry at home, what do you do with the fetus? Can the father take the miscarried fetus to the hospital to get rid of in the UK? Medical abortion from 10 weeks to 24 weeks. Abortion at home at 15 weeks. 13 to 24 week medical abortion. Now, you'll hear later, she claims these were suggestions that she clicked on. But also, while she was in the hospital, she clicked on asking, is the abortion pill detectable in the UK? Now, I think the cumulative effect of those internet searches is quite significant and amounts to fairly strong evidence that she was aware that she was beyond 10 weeks pregnant. Now, in the BBC's online report of this case, they totally omit this evidence, totally omit it, which is, it's outrageous. That's clearly a decision to bias the story and make it sound like this investigation in this case were totally unjustified. She was just victimised for no reason at all, but that's not the case at all. In their podcast about it, they do mention it, but only to give her the opportunity to explain it away.
A key plank of the prosecution case was evidence the police had found after seizing her electronic devices. They'd scoured her emails and messages and her Google search history.
I Google a lot, as most people do. I Google things that are going to be your worst case scenario, again, like a lot of people do. But I was Googling a lot of things around very early pregnancy. There are some things, when you type stuff into Google and it puts in a suggestion for you. Yeah, I clicked on them. why not? Some of those things were looking at abortion between 12 and 24 weeks. So I think it's very dangerous to try and base an entire case on what people search on Google.
Now, when I look at those searches, I do tend to think that she was maybe unsure of how far along with the pregnancy was at best. Anyway, this went to trial and the jury did not convict. So she was found not guilty. Right. Do I trust the jury in this case? Well, I guess my fear would be there's such a widespread opinion that the abortion laws are old-fashioned and they need changing and they're unfair and they mistreat women, victimise women. So can you trust a jury? In that case, well, there's possibility that members of the jury might just think, no, I'm not convicting anyone for this, because this law shouldn't exist. Right, what's my view? Well, I wasn't there. I didn't hear the whole case and I wasn't there. Maybe she's entirely innocent, but my point here to make is that it was entirely reasonable to bring this case. There was credible evidence to point to the possibility that she had broken the law with regard to abortion and basically killed her daughter against the legal regulations. Now, the whole legal process would obviously be traumatic and it was too long. There's no excuse for that. But to some degree, if someone's suspected of a crime, the process of investigating it is going to be traumatic, even if at the end of the day the person's found not guilty. So to some degree, that's unavoidable. So what do the media make of this story, the BBC in particular? Do they criticise Maristopes International for doling out abortion pills to a woman without making proper checks as to how advanced her pregnancy was? Does that get any criticism at all? Nothing. Nothing whatsoever. Right, Nicola Packer herself is just entirely seen as a victim. I'm saying the evidence against her was suppressed in the reports. The media also tend to focus, the BBC in particular, saying that what this shows is that the law is outdated and it shows that we need to decriminalise abortion. But they do criticise the police and the Crown Prosecution Service. The police, they're basically implying, shouldn't have done anything, and the Crown Prosecution Service shouldn't have brought a case. Now, they got this quote from a police officer involved in the case from actually a confidential meeting, but it was leaked later on. So a police officer said this.
It's an uncomfortable area for police to be operating in. You know, any criminalisation around abortions, I don't think is something that sits well with us or that we have really much experience in at all.
No, I think they're misrepresenting that. I think that police officer is not saying, oh, there should be no laws relating to abortion. He's just saying this is a difficult area for us as the police to assess, which is quite right. It is a very sensitive and difficult area for the police to assess. But I think it's been misrepresented in the reporting. The hospital is criticised for reporting the crime. And then we get quotes from, for example, the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, who say it's never in the public interest to prosecute a woman for an illegal abortion.
There's a widely supported view amongst the Royal Colleges and other medical bodies and professionals that it's never in the public interest to investigate a patient who is suspected of ending their own pregnancy.
In other words, if a woman has an abortion like the day before she was due to give birth, the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists say, well, that shouldn't be a crime at all. Even though she knows full well it's a crime, they just think it should basically be ignored. They think it's not in the public interest. Well, probably in the interest of the baby about to be killed. So these professional bodies and the media, they seem to have no interest whatsoever in preventing later term abortions. The pills by post system makes it very easy for women to get the pills and then to take them at whatever stage they happen to be. So why don't these people care about time limits? Is that they're such ardent feminists that just, this is a women's issue and no other considerations can come into it? Women automatically must be the victims. This is women's freedom at stake here. But there's not even a pretense of discussion about viability or development or capacity. I mean, these are normally the sort of points put forward by people who are pro-abortion. They say the fetus at this stage is not viable, it's not sufficiently developed, lacks capacity. But they don't even bother with those. They ignore all of those. They've just got no regard for the babies whatsoever. I mean, on the basis of this mindset, what objection they would have to killing a newborn baby, I really do not know, because it seems to have no concern whatsoever. So the whole thrust of this is that this is abortion decriminalisation is in the interest of women. It's going to make things better to women. Let's hear a bit about Nicola's experience here.
the image that I see most frequently when I feel like that is my dead baby.
And how are you kind of processing that now?
I'm still working on that. That's something I'll be getting therapy for.
Is that something you started now? Have you managed to kind of begin that journey for yourself?
I haven't yet, no, but I will be starting it. I think I just need a little bit more time to get to grips with how I feel about everything before I can really talk to somebody about it. But yeah, it's something I definitely need.
Since her ordeal began, she's been prescribed antidepressants. Some days are better than others.
So Nicola's saying out of this whole experience, the legal experience, the trial, etc., the most traumatic thing basically was the abortion. That was the real trauma. And that's the part that the decriminalisation people, they want there to be more and more women going through this experience, because that's what would happen. If it wasn't illegal, more and more women would have late abortions, whether it's officially or unofficially. Then that's what's going to happen. And this sort of trauma will be multiplied. So suggestion that this is protecting women from trauma by allowing this to happen on a larger scale is just not true. So the BBC just rams their point home at the end just to make it absolutely clear that they're campaigning for the decriminalisation of abortion.
There is a chance that Nicola could be the last woman in England and Wales to be tried for carrying out an illegal abortion. The law used to prosecute her, the Offences Against the Person Act, dates back to 1861. In June, Parliament's expected to vote on an amendment to the Crime and Policing Bill, which would decriminalise abortion. It would mean that women could no longer be subject to investigation, criminal charges or custodial sentences for ending their own pregnancy.
At a UK level, we've got Labour MPs pushing for decriminalisation of abortion. In Scotland, the SNP have formed an expert advisory group on abortion that's full of proponents of decriminalisation. So that group will propose decriminalisation. We'll see if the government takes that forward or not. The Greens and the Lib Dems, that's their policy, to decriminalise abortion. Conservative and Reform, what do they say? Well, obviously, as great parties of principle, they don't say anything, don't care. Probably if it came to a vote in Parliament, Conservatives, would they vote in favour or against it? I think probably on balance they'd vote for it. Reform, which way would they vote? Oh, I don't know, 50-50. But at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things, decriminalisation is a relatively small side issue compared to the wider abortion issue. The abortion issue in Scotland, well over 18,000 unborn children killed every year. Decriminalising, how much would it change that? Not by a huge amount. Just to finish, to say about the BBC, as I've said many times before, we pay the licence fee for them to produce this ideologically driven propaganda. I believe the BBC is unreformable, so that's why the licence fee should end. They should stand on their own feet and invite subscriptions. So, on that topic, do subscribe to the channel as well. Do like the video if you found that interesting. And thanks for watching.